everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Kay Thompson, and this is the latest episode of All Things Real Estate. I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit today about something that I think has there's a lot of misconceptions about it, whether or not it's legal, and really if people should be doing this, and that is real estate investing. As a real estate professional, I can tell you that we do need real estate investors. I think they're needed in every market. Real estate investors do provide a particular service to certain areas that's needed. A lot of times real estate investors work to turn dilapidated properties into gems. They make homes that were previously unlivable livable. And so we do need a certain degree of that, I think, in every community in order to keep those communities thriving and to keep them healthy. There is, though, a point where, even a good thing can become too much. And so I think in the last few years, we have experienced that. What happens when certain markets have unchecked activity, and what that unchecked activity translates to for us in the real world. And so, specifically here in the Mid-South, we've had some challenges with our housing inventory because, in part because we had a lot of institutional investors, big hedge funds such as BlackRock and places like that coming into our markets and buying up the land and the housing. Flipping it or making it rentable, but making it so that the rents outweigh the amount that you're paying for rent far supersedes in a lot of cases what people in this area are able to afford to pay in rent and live comfortably. And so I thought it would be a wonderful idea to kind of talk a little bit about the traditional home buying process, and then let you guys know that there are ways that you can get into the game and become owners of real property, sometimes without using your own money and resources. And so that's what today's subject is about. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The first thing that I wanted to do, though, was point out the fact that we have some traditional steps that people traditionally take to buy homes in the retail market, and so I kind of wanted to go over some of those. The first one is most traditional home buyers and sellers are going to use a real estate agent or a realtor, and they kind of use that person to help guide them through the process, help them to navigate the twists and turns of the transaction, to be sure that they're coming out on the other end with what they desire to have going into it. And so one of the first things that a real estate professional is going to ask you about is your financing. So they're going to want to know, if you are able to acquire financing on your own. If you're not, or if you haven't taken that step yet, usually your real estate professional has a list of people, lenders that they can put you in contact with, that can help you with that. Getting, approved for the mortgage. So what I want to do is remind people that a pre-approval or pre-qualification letter are not guarantees that you're going to be able to purchase the home or purchase in the amount that is listed on your pre-approval. Usually people get pre-approvals or pre-qualification letters based on what they tell a lender they can do. The lender gives the pre-approval or the pre-qualification letter based on that. And then as you're working to find your home, the lender is doing their thing in the background behind the scenes, making sure that what you told them you were earning and so forth and so on is actually accurate. And so while they're doing that, you're out with your real estate professional purchasing a home. And so you're buying a home and you're looking for it to be in a certain price range, based on what you and the lender spoke about. That's giving you the pre-approval or the pre-qualification. Once you find a house that you like, you get the real estate agent to help you to make an offer. Your offer has to be accepted. If your offer is accepted, then the next thing you do is work through the inspections process. I strongly suggest that buyers get a home inspection. A lot of times, we think, oh, I'm a contractor. I'm a general contractor, or my brother is a contractor, and so he'll be able to just walk through the house and tell me, things that he sees. Usually, even contractors, when they're going through a property, they're looking for cosmetic things. They're not looking for things that could affect you down the line that are in, the structural components of the house, the systems of the house, meaning electrical, gas, water, those kinds of things. A general contractor may not be privy to or may not understand how to inspect that for safety. And so that's what a home inspector does. One of the things that you want to make sure that you're doing with the home inspector is, before you hire them, make sure that they are able to inspect all the places that you want them to inspect. If you're purchasing a home with a pool, you should get the pool inspected. If you're purchasing a home with a septic tank, it should be inspected. All of these things should happen before you close on the loan, because once you do that, and you've closed and monies have changed hands, then that is it. There is no going back. And so you want to make sure that you have all of your inspections done within that time frame that's allotted for in your contract. That does not include like the roof, chimneys, things like that. The appraiser is also going to come out. If you're working with a traditional lender, they want a traditional appraisal, and that appraiser is going to come out and he's going to inspect the property. He's going to tell you that the house is valued at this amount, and it's an as-is value, meaning there's no repairs, or it's valued at this amount subject to these things being done. So lender required repairs must be done before the buyer can close, and there's negotiations that can take place on who does that, those repairs, the buyer or the seller. Typically, I'll just put it out there, a lender wants the seller to do those things. But I have seen instances where the buyer took that on. So after you have your inspections and your appraisal, and you've gotten your repair or replacement amendment together, that's going off to be signed by the seller, then you want to next contact your closing attorney to make sure that your title is marketable, meaning there are no liens on it, there's nothing that has popped up that says the previous owner or the current owner owes anything. And you may want to get title insurance to help cover any possible outlying issues. That is something that you speak with the closing attorney about, but they're usually pretty good at finding those kinds of things. And then once you've done all of that, gotten your homeowner's insurance and done all the things, then you are able at that point to make your way to the closing table. And so that is what a traditional sale kind of looks like. All of that can be changed up and switched out. You don't have to have inspections. You don't have to do all those things. But those are things that I strongly recommend that you do, because they actually keep you safe in the transaction, and they help keep you from buying a money pit, in other words. Now we're going to move on to what I really wanted to discuss with you guys, which was the option to get involved in real estate transactions without having to bring a lot of your own resources to the table. And one of the ways that you can definitely do that is by working with for sale by owners. Now, here's some truths about for sale by owners. Number one, they are listing their home themselves because they don't want to pay two agents. They may pay one agent, but they really don't want to pay two. The other reason is because for sale by owner people tend to think their house is in great condition, doesn't need any work or any repairs usually, and so they don't want someone coming in to tell them that. They want to sell the property as is. They don't really have the time or resources maybe to do repairs. A real estate agent more often than not is going to come in and tell you what you need to do to get top dollar, and that may require some painting or whatever. And that particular seller is just not willing to do that. So that's one of the things that would scare them away. For sale by owner may not have a property condition disclosure statement to give to you. And if he's not working with a real estate agent, he doesn't have to provide a specific statement. Everyone that's selling property does have to disclose material defects, because material defects are defects that if you know about them, they may affect your desire to want to purchase that property or not. So those things need to be disclosed no matter if you're working with an agent or not. And so caveat emptor is another big concern when people are going out and, doing the job of a real estate agent on their own, for their own, because they're for their own benefit or gain, and instead of trying to create a good working solution for, everyone involved. So yeah, you definitely have to worry about caveat emptor with for sale by owners. On the flip side of that, though, you may be able to work with the for sale by owner to get control of the property that the for sale by owner has without using a lot of your own money. So one of the main things that I wanted to talk about today was contract assignment, and you could definitely do that in this situation. With the contract assignment, you're basically putting your property under contract with the original owner, and then you're going to sell your contract to an end buyer for a higher amount. You would get what's the difference between what you're selling it for and what you owe the seller on the original contract. And you just take those things to an attorney. You definitely have to pay the attorney for their services and whatnot. But once that transaction is complete, the end buyer has a property, the seller has sold the property, and you have collected a fee for facilitating that. And so those people are called investors. Those investors are typically called wholesalers in our market, in the Mid-South market, and basically they are the people a lot of times that are behind the I buy houses signs that we see in our neighborhoods. When you see those signs in abundance, you know that they're actively looking at and trying to buy up as much as they can in your neighborhood. If you don't see it as much, then that's a place that they may not be as active. And so all of that's important to know when you're dealing with the for sale by owner. The next thing that you want to think about, or that you can look at in order to determine if there are some ways for you to get into real estate without using your own money, is to look at off-market properties. There are properties that are distressed, meaning they need a lot of work, cosmetics, system-wise, structural-wise, and the owners are not in a position to do that. You have people who have good properties, but they may be divorcing, and they may be ordered by a court to sell a property. You have people that are in a lot of debt who need to sell their homes to get out of, to pay back a debt, or it could be medical bills, things of that nature. And then you have people who their property faced a disaster that you just can't get over. So, for example, the house burned up, but the owner didn't have fire insurance. So they've got this property that they own, but it's not insured, so they're not going to be able to necessarily go back there and rebuild. And so that's a property that someone would need to be able to get rid of. In all of these cases, caveat emptor still applies. In all of these cases, if you can, I still would suggest, if you can do it, having a home inspection. A lot of times people want to move fast. In these type of transactions, they don't want to do a lot of lollygagging. That's why you have to be very smart and have a team in place already who can do your due diligence for you as quickly as possible. I was trying to suggest not having a bunch of people that you're sending these things to do for you. You want to run a really tight ship in order to like, for example, you have to get the property cheap enough that you can fix it up and resell it for a profit if you're just looking to invest. If you're looking to wholesale, then you're having to get your contract at a price cheap enough that you can sell it to an end buyer who will be able to fix the property and flip it for a profit. They may want to assign their contract with you to another end buyer. So there are all sorts of ways that you can get into it, and all kinds of things that can happen in the transaction. But you just offering someone that you have a rapport with the option to have you purchase their home. If you've built a rapport with that person and that person kind of knows who you are and what you're about, then they probably you could probably get away with putting their property under contract without putting a restriction on it. And so that's that. And like I said, if you see signs, properties on the street, or not property, but signs in front of properties that say, I buy houses, fast cash, any condition, call this number. Those people are the investors that are looking to buy houses. They may sometimes be wholesalers who are looking to do an assignment contract. As a real estate professional, it is your duty to vet people, and I would say the same thing would be the case if you're looking to get into this as a wholesaler. You want to make sure that the people that you're working with are legit and that they do what they say they're going to do, because you are going to have to close on the transaction yourself if the people that you're working with cannot be trusted and are not reliable. So this is a great way to build a buyer's list for those sort of contracts when you come across them. Just make sure that the person that you're dealing with is someone that is trustworthy and that has great follow-through. You can also do what they call joint ventures. A joint venture is when multiple real estate players come together to work a deal between them, using a certain amount of pooled resources. So they're putting their money together, they're putting their systems together. Maybe they're sharing contractors, things of that nature, so that they will be able to develop whatever it is that they're trying to develop. Here in the Mid-South, we have some very good developers that are building all sorts of things, from skyscrapers to single family homes. And so sometimes those people have to get together and partner in order to get certain things that are done that may be beneficial for their company as well as the citizenry. So this is what a JV does. One of the other things that I want to point out is that you don't want to go into tying up someone's property with the contract if you don't have an end game. You also don't want to go into it with partners that you really aren't familiar with and that you don't trust, because there are rules that are associated with the buying and selling of real property that can get you caught up. So, like, number one, you put a property under contract with someone and then you don't close for whatever reason. Depending on the severity of the circumstance, some sellers may sue you. They may sue you for the most common thing is specific performance. They'll sue you for that because they'll say, well, this person put this property under contract with me and they didn't close and it caused me damages because now I have to put it back on, ramp up my marketing, maybe hire a new agent. Things like that they have to do. And so those things are going to cost them. Maybe they weren't going to pay, but now they have to. Things of that nature. So they could sue you for something called specific performance, which basically allows a judge to either sentence you to purchasing the property or, sentences you to paying off the debt and the damages that were incurred because of your lack of ability to close. So make sure that you're careful about that. Make sure that you're reading every document has a hope of being attached to your transaction. Because if it's not written down in most states, it didn't happen when it comes to real estate. We follow the statute of frauds, which basically says a contract, in order for it to be enforced, must be written down. Doesn't mean that because you said one thing and I agree to it, that your contract is invalid. It just can't be enforced if there's no paperwork to cover that up. So I do want to make sure that you guys know that. There's also all sorts of ways that you can get financing for this type of stuff. One of the things that I did forget to mention, and I'm going to mention real quickly, is mortgage notes. Just like you can buy and sell real property and you can control real property just using a contract and not necessarily dollars, the same sort of principle can be applied to mortgage notes. So you can go on something, places like such as CrowdStreet, for example, and purchase a part of or all of a mortgage note. And basically what you're doing is you're purchasing that note, and then that person who is paying the note is going to continue to make their payments as they normally would. You collect a certain percentage of that for being, the owner and all of that. And then if obviously, any overhead or anything that goes along with that, you would be able to cover the cost of that as well. And so mortgage note investing is also a good thing. It is something you can do if you don't have a lot of money to start. They rank the mortgage notes. I think it's A, B, C, D on places like CrowdStreet, depending on, where you are. And you don't have to be local in order to do any of these things. You don't have to be a real estate agent to work on and look up the properties on CrowdStreet. Just like you don't have to be a real estate agent to go to Zillow.com and find properties for sale there. But it is important still to be able to do the research. And with mortgage notes, just like with any other property, you're able to buy properties that are not not in your city or state. So you can buy out of state. And then places like CrowdStreet will tell you exactly what's going on with the deal, why they, what the rank is and things of that nature. And so you can just go in there and negotiate those sorts of things. And I do know that there were several people last year who invested in, something that had to do with real estate that they were able to have a nice little nest egg after. So I hope that is something that can happen to you. So here are some benefits for doing things like what I just mentioned, which is purchasing real estate and then actually engaging in the way that I just mentioned, where you're buying mortgage notes or contract assignment and things like that. Number one, you don't need a license for contract assignment. You just need to be honest. If you're a real estate agent, you need to tell everybody involved that you're a real estate agent. Make them sign documentation that says that you showed them. That's number one. Number two, investing in real estate is one of the surefire ways that I know of that you can build generational wealth for your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and so forth and so on. It's the best vehicle for that. And real estate is something that always has a value. It never drops to zero. Like, there's every ounce of land on planet Earth has a value. Now, in terms of equity, the value of that may go up and down depending on the markets and what's happening, but your equity is never at zero if you own your property outright. And so there's tax advantages as well to purchasing property not with your own money and then turning around and flipping it. The way that has been working historically is if you do that, then the person who sold the contract, so not the seller, but the person that the seller went under contract with to sell the property, that person has to be honest about who they are and what they're doing in the transaction, and they have to make sure that the seller is aware of that as well. And so it's a great way to it's a great way to build generational wealth and to close the wealth gap. It's also a wonderful way to close the home ownership gap, because once you have gained control of a property and you're able to then you're able to utilize other things such as hard money, DSCR loans or DCSR loans, FHA 203K and others to be able to fix these properties up and bring them back to par. And it's just not always conducive for people to do that on their own. So not only would you be building generational wealth for yourself and your prosperity, but you're helping someone. If you're able to buy a property, fix it, flip it, you're actually putting someone else who on the path to home ownership, as long as you are not being unreasonable and you're willing to work with the person, then you can do that. I actually have come up with some really creative ways to work with people to have them buy and sell property to me. I have purchased property for consideration other than money. A lot of people also don't realize that you don't need money to engage in real estate. That is not the only thing that they can that they can use for consideration. I actually know an agent who's gotten cars. He has, people have gotten furniture, all sorts of things, as a result of being a stellar and outstanding person during a real estate transaction. And so hopefully this information that I've given you today has put some ideas into your head about how you can become an investor and how you can start building generational wealth for your families. If you have any other questions and concerns, I'm always here. You can use the information at the beginning of the program or at the end of the program to reach out to me, and I'm happy to help. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in this week, and as always, make sure that you are taking care of yourselves and staying safe out there. Till next time, bye-bye.